the meeting. All right, welcome back. Welcome back. In that case, and what I'll begin. So item 6.2, this is a Daisy Business Park, which is 19 to 35 Sylvan Grove, London, SE 151PD. This is colleagues pages 117 to 249 of the agenda pack and pages 1 to 5 of the Addendum Report. Can I ask the officer consider the report to introduce themselves, and you may begin your presentation.
Thank you, Chair. My name is Wing Lau and I'm the team leader in Old Kent Road team, and I shall be presenting. For some of the presentation, I might have to turn my camera off to improve connection.
Understood.
I'm going to try and share the screen now.
Very good.
Can you all see that?
Yes. Yes, we can.
Okay, so before I start the presentation, I'd just like to point out that there is an addendum report which summarises amendments to a couple of the recommended conditions, and it also reports a letter received from Veolia. And since that issue of that addendum, there was another late objection that's been received from Southwark Law Centre. They raised the point that major developments should be carbon zero, meaning that there should be no payments into a carbon offset fund by developers in the future. And I will discuss this later in my presentation. So the application site is known as Daisy Business Park in the Old Kent Road Opportunity Area, and the site is accessed off Sylvan Grove, and it's within a mixed residential, industrial and commercial area. An existing two-storey building currently provides B1 use class that are made up of a number of commercial units, including predominantly offices, studio and some light industrial space. And in front of this is a car parking forecourt. The site also adjoins a development site to the south and west, known as Devonshire Square or Devonshire Grove Development, which members may recall back in the June committee that there was a resolution to grant planning permission for up to 565 homes with employment, community and retail uses. And to the north of the site is the integrated waste management facility operated by Veolia, and to the east is the recently built residential flats at 8 to 24 Sylvan Grove, which sometimes been referred to the Hyde Housing Scheme. Here are some existing photos of the site. This view is a view of the car park from Sylvan Grove, and you can see here the car parking area and the gas holder in the background. The image on the right here is looking north on Sylvan Grove, which is a cul-de-sac with 8 to 24 Sylvan Grove on one side of the road, and the waste management facility is in the background of this view. In terms of policy designation, the site is within Old Kent Road Opportunity Area Sub-Area 4, and specifically site allocation OKR 18, which is named Devon Street and Sylvan Grove. It's also located within the Strategic Industrial Location, or SIL, and it's also within the core area, the Urban Density Zone, and it's also within the Archaeological Priority Zone and an Air Quality Management Area. I just wanted to note that in the emerging New Southwark plan, the site is no longer protected as SIL, and the maps propose a release of the site from the SIL to allow for the provision of new homes mixed with commercial uses. And requirements for this allocation site include replacing existing employment space, providing residential or other town centre uses, providing a new public square off Devonshire Grove, providing new access road into the waste management facility, and providing on-site servicing. The 2017 version of the draft AOP indicative master plan is on the right here, which shows no open space proposed on this site in that earlier draft version. The site is not located within a conservation area, and the western part of the existing building is identified as being of some townscape merit. And the Grade 2 listed gas holder is nearby to the northwest of the site. So this is an image of the development, which will be formed by 3 main components. So the building will be part 2, part 5, and 32 stories arranged on an L-shaped footprint, wrapping around a new public open space. And in summary, this scheme is for a mixed-use development for B1 commercial and residential flats. And I will explain those uses and quantum later in the presentation. In terms of public consultation responses, 3 objections and 3 supports have been received at the time of writing the main committee report. And as I noted in the addendum, there's a second letter from Veolia received since and the main issues raised from all the consultation responses are density and height of the building being too much for the site. Existing vacant buildings could be restored for future businesses. The provision of electric vehicle charging points on Sylvan Grove. There's questions about the capacity for infrastructure such as drainage and parking, given the community is a small area. And there's also been comments about the lack of direct engagement with Veolia by the applicant and concerns over the potential impact of the scheme on the operation and not following the agent of change principle. So those issues are recorded and addressed in the main report. So in addition to the commercial uses proposed, the scheme provides for housing, and in total there'll be 219 dwellings, and 35.1% of those would be affordable when calculated by habitable rooms. This is provided within a total of 59 affordable dwellings, and that the affordable housing would be made up of a policy compliant offer of social and intermediate units. And overall 25.4% of those habitable rooms would be social rented, and 9.7% would be for in immediate tenure. So this slide shows the distribution of different tenures, with the red being for social rent, the green, the intermediate, and the remaining floors being in private sale. The scheme is tenure blind, with shared entrance and lobby for the private and affordable units, and the design quality of the building means that you cannot distinguish between the tenures. And all of the 3-bedroom units will be in the affordable tenure, offering different types and sizes, with a few being large 3-bedroom, 6-person flats, which is very welcomed. So this is just the general site layout showing the building proposed in L-shaped footprint and the public open space designed as a garden square. The proposed development would also provide just under 3,000 square meters of commercial B1 floor space on the lower floors of the development, and also provide 10% of that to be affordable workspace as required by policy. And all the entrances to the commercial and residential uses are from within the square, and the car park and servicing areas located to the rear access of Sylvan Grove. There's also an internal communal amenity space or room shaded in purple here, located on the ground floor for all the residents to use, which could also be used up, open up for community events or meetings by the held by the local tenants residents association. So looking at the land use issues, introducing housing here would represent a departure from the adopted Southwark and London plan, as it is within the SIL. But in determining whether the principle of the proposed development would be acceptable in land use terms, members need to consider whether the wider regeneration benefits of the scheme would outweigh any harm caused, and whether those benefits would therefore justify a departure from the adopted planning policy. And those benefits are discussed in the main report, but just to highlight the main points, the AAP places the site within the proposed action area core and within the proposal site OKR 18. And just to summarise, it stipulates that development must replace existing employment space and provide residential above and provide a new public square off Devonshire Grove. So the scheme would provide for an uplift in employment floor space, including a guaranteed minimum of over 1,800 square metres of B1 light industrial use. That would increase the number of jobs on the site. And there will also be 10% quality affordable workspace. And the provision of housing and policy compliant affordable housing above would also deliver the aspirations of the AOP and the local plan. In terms of transport impact, it has been assessed that the trip renovation of the scheme would not harm the local highway network. And the proposed development would essentially be car-free, with the exception of these 6 disabled parking bays for the residential elements of the scheme. And the servicing and deliveries for the proposed development will be undertaken on site at ground floor level from within the undercroft parking. And for the larger vehicles, which would generally be infrequent, there'll be a loading bay that may be provided on Sylvan Grove, and that exact location of those bays will be subject to the Section 278 agreements. And the scheme would also provide the policy compliant cycle spaces for both residential and commercial uses on the first floor. So all of the residential flats are within the tallest block here. So this is a typical floor layout on levels 2 to 5 within the main tower. So density of the scheme is above the range within the urban density zone, but it is within the Old Kent Road core area. and the scheme has demonstrated exemplary design, and these are set out in the main report. They all meet, or in some cases exceed, the minimum room and flat sizes, and also meet the minimum floor to ceiling heights. They would have good levels of daylight and sunlight, and there'd be no more than 8 flats sharing a court on each floor. And the flats would have adequate outlook and adequate privacy distances within the scheme. And each flat would have private amenity space in the form of balconies or winter gardens. And in total, about 116 units would be dual aspect, and 61% of the affordable units would be dual aspect, with the private units offering 50%. But just like to point out that the outlook of these units would actually be very good. The units have very good views out into to the new square, and there are no physical obstructions immediately in front of the single aspect units, and none that are north facing only. So the proposed development would deliver high quality public realm of approximately 700 square metres. And this is essentially an extension to the public open space proposed in the Devonshire Square area. So that's coloured in grey. The communal garden space is provided on the roof of the lower block building and is accessible to all the tenures. And as I explained earlier, there's also a communal amenity room on the ground floor with direct access from the garden square. The total communal amenity space provision will fall short of the standards, and there will be an in-lieu payment that could go towards the provision of new park elsewhere in the plan area. So there'll be play space provided in the communal roof terrace, and over 500 square metres of playable open space within the new public square, giving a total that would meet the play space requirement set out in the Mayor's SPG. And the proposed approach to dedicated play space provision has been to maximise doorstep play for under fives on the site in line with the Mayor's SPG. However, it's also possible that some areas could provide for older children on site, such as table tennis and other facilities within the communal room. So this playable environment, which would have design elements that have play value, would benefit people of all ages in the neighbourhood, including places for quiet enjoyment, as well as places to be active, and allows interaction between people. And the playable open space, as per the GLA guidance, is therefore multifunctional, and the design of the landscaping would be secured by condition. So this slide here on the left shows 3 other areas of open spaces and playable spaces approved at the Devonshire Square development. So that Devonshire Square scheme had proposed a garden square type open space immediately adjoining this application site. And just to reiterate, the 2017 AAP master plan had no requirement for public open space on this particular site at Daisy's Business Park. However, following public consultation on the plan and engagement with the applicant and the neighbouring developers, this has been amended, and the master plan shows the provision of public open space, which would also benefit the residents of Sylvan Grove. So this application would therefore be providing that space in line with the revised master plan. So the proposal here under the Daisy Business Park application would deliver 700 square metres of public open space, and there is a shortfall. However, just the garden square would actually be one larger space once both developments are complete. And this development would deliver about 2/3 of this new Sylvan Garden. So in total, there would be over 1,000 square metres of open space in this area from the 2 developments. And the future aspirations is to provide linkages and networks of green spaces across the opportunity area. And this scheme would help to deliver that, and further improving the permeability across this part of the opportunity area. And details of this would be secured in the landscaping details to ensure a unified space with coherent landscaping design. I just wanted to also highlight the proposed public realm would also extend across Sylvan Grove, providing public realm improvements to the existing street and maximising the development's provision of public open space, though those improvements are not included in the calculations. So this is just a table showing the various open space requirements and what has been provided and where it may fall short. So there will be an in-lieu payment for the communal amenity space and public open space shortfall. So as I explained earlier, the development would be part 2, 5 and 32 stories. So the 2-storey is the reconstructed section of the building, and the draft AAP identifies the site as an appropriate location for a Tier 3 tall building of up to 16 stories. So although the building exceeds what was previously drafted in the AAP, and at 32 stories will become of Tier 1, this is considered in the context of changes to the AAP master plan, which includes the creation of new public open space on Sylvan Grove, and the tallest building proposed on Devonshire Square site would be up to 39 stories in height. So the proposal here would be seen in the context of the adjoining development. And it's also been demonstrated in the applicant's submission that the building would not adversely impact on local or borough views and or strategic views, and the setting of nearby heritage assets would also not be harmed. So in terms of architecture and design, the building would be of masonry character and would also employ terracotta cladding, referencing the solidity and robustness of existing architecture found in the area. And in keeping with the principles of the AAP for taller buildings in this area, there's a strong vertical emphasis adopted throughout, with a base, middle, and the crown. And as you move up the facades from the brick base, the materials and textures will vary, but there'll be a consistent color tone maintained. And that's been maintained by using terracotta or the red brick molding. And then there will also be white lintels or sills to be used as accent to the tones of the red brick, and the increased floor to ceiling heights of the ground and first floors help to celebrate the base of the building and its entrances. And the quality of these materials also be, and the colour of the bricks would also be secured by planning conditions. So this slide just shows the committed scheme in the surrounding area, with the Devonshire Square scheme shown in purple. The applicant has carried out daylight and sunlight assessments, and as noted in my report, that whilst there will be reductions in daylight and sunlight to neighbouring property 8 to 24 Sylvan Grove, this is a degree of a consequence of the design of the existing building, including the presence of deep side returns, overhanging balconies and recesses. And the other neighbouring properties will not be at first significantly impacted by the development, and the outlook and privacy of existing residential units would also not be adversely affected. The distance between the proposed tower and that approved at Devonshire Square is at least 18 metres, and the towers are designed so that they do not have habitable rooms that directly overlook each other. The applicant had tested the effects of wind, both as a standalone scenario and cumulatively with the Devonshire Square scheme. And the criteria used in the assessment, widely used in wind microclimate studies, applies to ground level conditions. The cumulative effects are beneficial to the ground level conditions, as the Devonshire Grove scheme provides some screening to the main public area at ground floor. And whilst this benefit will be less on the upper floors, the orientation of the buildings does mean that there are fewer balconies directly facing southwest, which is direction of the prevailing wind. And the amenity space at 5th floor is screened by the Devonshire Square building from the prevailing wind. So in terms of sustainability, the carbon dioxide savings exceed the on-site target set for domestic or non-domestic uses. And the renewable energy sources would come from PV panels on the roof of the tallest tower and air source heat pumps. So this plan just shows where the PVs are located. So the residential areas would achieve 70% carbon reduction, and non-residential areas would achieve 61% reduction. So these levels are considered to be very good. And on top of this, the design of the scheme and the energy strategy would also reduce energy bills for the future residents, and officers consider this to be a benefit of the scheme. As it falls short of carbon zero, there will be a carbon offset payment. So the late observation received today, which members might have seen, points out that major developments should be truly carbon zero with no offset payment. So in terms of relative policy weighting, the adopted London plan, which is 2016, is the most up-to-date development plan policy on this issue. And the draft New London plan has also been through its examination in public in March 2020. So officers would just like to point out that the latest draft New London plan policies on energy is that major development proposals should demonstrate how the net zero carbon target will be met. And it also requires a minimum of 35% carbon savings against Part L of the 2013 building regulations, and any shortfall being made up of the offset payment. So this application will actually meet that policy. And the scheme has prioritised carbon savings by achieving by almost 70% site-wide carbon reduction, which is considered to be very good, and this is one of the highest achieving level in Old Kent Road to date. So in terms of environmental impacts such as noise, air quality, wind and microclimate, the application submission demonstrates that with appropriate mitigation measures, any potential impacts would be minimised. And in terms of the potential impact on adjoining waste management facility, a noise impact assessment and odour assessment has been undertaken to consider the likely impacts which could arise from the operation of the waste management facility. And the environmental team officer has reviewed this and considers the scheme to be acceptable and the appropriate mitigation measures in place. So members would have seen the addendum report to note the additional comment from Veolia. So just to highlight and summarise this matter, Veolia are required as part of the original planning permission to meet certain standards in terms of odour mitigation from the operation of a waste transfer station, and those requirements still remain in force. And the applicant's submission notes that potential odour impacts arising from the adjacent waste facility would be mitigated through the provision of mechanical ventilation systems fitted with odour filters if impacts are deemed to require mitigation. So officers therefore consider that a condition requiring the submission of the ventilation strategy with the inclusion of filters be submitted prior to development above grade would be appropriate. And further, that condition will require a validation assessment be carried out prior to occupation. So that condition is in the addendum report, and officers are satisfied overall the scheme would mean the quality of accommodation would be good and would follow the agent of change principle. And demolition and construction management plans will be required, and that's secured in the section 106 to ensure any other impacts would be managed. Sustainable drainage systems in the form of green and blue roofs, attenuation tanks and permeable paving are also proposed. The council's archaeology officer has reviewed the assessment and concludes that there's unlikely to be any harm, provided that there's conditions applied. And there will be also other section 106 financial and non-financial obligations noted in the main report. And the recommendation is that they should be completed by the 8th of February. So I've now come to the end of my presentation, and just to summarise and highlight the main points from this, the proposed development will result in the introduction of residential uses into the SIL and would therefore represent a departure from the adopted development plan. However, as members know, Old Kent Road is, as an opportunity area will undergo significant transformation with substantial growth, including new housing. So officers have highlighted those regeneration benefits that this scheme would bring. And the proposed development would increase the number of jobs on the site, including provision of affordable workspace and delivery of new housing, including over 35% affordable. The proposal would deliver a good standard of accommodation. There'll be a new public accessible park and play space and associated public realm that would improve permeability across the site. The potential impacts identified are not considered to be significant, and all hinder the future operations of the adjoining waste transfer station. The building height and design will sit well with the approved Devonshire Square development and will not harm the setting of any nearby heritage assets or the protected views. The cycle and car parking levels are acceptable, and the local highway network will not be harmed. So it's therefore recommended that planning permission be granted subject to conditions, referral to the Mayor of London and the completion of the Section 106 legal agreement. And that's the end of my presentation, Chair.
Thank you very much indeed. That was very good. Are there any points of clarification from committee members? I don't see any messages in the messenger here. Is that correct? Or Councillor Whittam? You're speaking, but you're on mute.
Yeah, you don't look at the blue hand.
Oh, the blue hand is there. Oh, well, I can't. You can't see.
On the participants.
Okay. I'll try that one as well then. Go ahead.
For me, there's so many things wrong with this application.
Forgive me, go, Councillor. Can I have your question?
Yeah. Okay. The open space on page 28, I think it is, of the pack. Can't quite see the number. We've got two boxes covering the same area. So we have double counting going on. This is not acceptable.
Okay, that's your question. Let's resolve the question of double count, and if there is, I believe this came up previously, but Wing, would you like to respond to that first of all?
Yes. So the play spaces within the public open space shown here, but that is playable open space, and that is allowed in the as per the GLA guidance. And as I've noted in my presentation, the kind of playable environment in the public realm benefits people of all ages in a neighbourhood. There'll be areas for quiet enjoyment as well as places to be active. And the SPG, the GLA SPG notes that there is pressure on land, and public space have the potential to be treated as incidental places or playable spaces. And that's all down to landscaping. But just wanted to point out that this is seen in Devonshire Square scheme as well, where it's been the kind of the play value is incorporated into the public open space, and actually it's actually a benefit because it's open to all the other residents on Sylvan Grove, and therefore officers considers to be acceptable as per the GLA guidance.
So that is the response to the question, Councillor Whittam. So we'll hear about that response. The next question, please.
My next question is, how do people access the roof, the under 5 doorstep way to the roof terrace?
Okay, so the under 5 doorstep play is predominantly on the roof here, but there will also be other areas within the public.
How do they access the roof?
Within the building on the lift.
So does everybody get a fob to that?
Yes, it will be open to all tenures.
And the flats that are on that side, which is the same side as the L-shaped bit, how do they get light? If you go back to that one, yeah. The building on the right-hand side.
This side?
That side is abutting the main tower.
Okay.
How do the flats on that corner get light?
This one?
No. That is actually abutting the building. There are flats underneath that, aren't there?
I'm sorry, but I'm not understanding where you mean, sorry.
Well, there's a 7-storey block, isn't there?
It's 5 stories here. This is
5
commercial
stories.
block.
Okay, yeah. But the bit that attaches to the main building,
yes,
there are flats on that boundary where it attaches to the building.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yes, so they are very restricted for light.
Councillor Whittam, in my report, I talk about the average daylight factor to the proposed units, and those levels are actually considered to be very good. So, so the levels of daylight to those units would be, would be very good. But they will get mainly their light from the balcony and the windows here and here to the side.
Wing, can you just explain as well how many flats are in that condition? Because on the ground and first floor it's commercial use, so I don't think there are many flats who have that party wall condition, are there?
No, you're right actually. So it's levels from 2 to 5. So if I got this section drawing, can you see that? So it's like 1, 2, 3, 4 levels of those flats would have that condition.
Yep. Thank you. That's clear enough. Councillor Whittam, any further questions? No? Oh, we can't hear you. Can't hear you.
I'm very worried about the microclimate between Devonshire tall tower and this tall tower. It's only 18 metres between at the closest point. So that doesn't include the 2-storey bit at the bottom, I've noticed. The 2-storey bit at the bottom is nearer.
Okay. You want to understand what mitigation to prevent the microclimate at ground floor level?
Well, no, just all the way up. The two towers are very close together all the way up. So
Understood. And the effect it has on microclimate. Understand. I believe Wing addressed that, but Wing, would you like to just further just retrace your descriptions on this?
Yeah, so I think if I could draw the members to paragraph 345 of the main report, I talk about the likely impacts of the proposal on wind. And the microclimate studies also look at the cumulative effect with the Devonshire Square in place. And it does conclude there will be some locations that might have wind conditions that are windier. But actually, when the Devonshire Square development is in place, it's actually beneficial to the pedestrian, the experience of the pedestrians. And the mitigation measures in place, should Devonshire Square not come forward before Daisy Business Park, has been proposed. And I've put in my recommendation that those mitigation measures should be submitted and to demonstrate that how it complies with the criteria for assessing wind and microclimate.
Okay. Councillor Whittam, you're muted.
yeah, I just don't believe it.
Okay, well, that is a response, but we might want to save those responses for the latter part of the meeting. Today, at this juncture, we're simply answering questions. Thank you, Councillor Whittam. Councillor Newens.
Thank you, Chair. I mean, I'd like to come back on this issue of public space, and I want to. So first of all, could you please confirm that? So we're saying that this development is providing 740 square meters of. No, sorry, that we're providing 700 square meters of public space, which represents a shortfall of 395 square meters. Could you please confirm that none of that 700 square meters is road space or cycle paths or anything like that? Is it genuinely open space for open activities, or is it space that people will have to be moving out of the way of passing bicycles? And that's one question. And I also wanted to ask, actually, I'm a little bit concerned about the calculation as well, but that's something I also wanted to ask, we're told that this 700 square meters, it goes towards the open space as well at the Devonshire Square site, as I understand it. And I just wanted to be sure that, I mean, obviously I can't remember what it was, but obviously there was a big deficit there as well. I wanted to be sure that that 700 square meters is actually being paid for and provided by this site, and there's nothing going on with the payments that were made in lieu for the previous shortfall at the previous application at Devonshire Square. Is that, do you understand what I'm saying?
Yes.
Yes, go ahead.
So firstly, the calculation 700 square meters doesn't include any of the new pavement or access areas or under the colonnades or access to the car parking area or any of the improvements of the public realm. And in the Devonshire Square development, there was actually no shortfall, but so that was policy compliant, but that had also included playable open space within their own public open spaces. So this scheme, when complete, it would actually deliver over 1,000 square meters of public open space in this part, on this part of the site, which wasn't actually envisaged in the 2017 AAP master plan. But it's only really following the consultation with engagement with the public that we responded to this. And this scheme is actually delivering the aspirations of what the further draft of the master plan. But no, there is no shortfall on the Devonshire Square site.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you.
Lovely. Thank you. Thank you, Wing.
Excellent. Excellent. Are there further questions? If not, if you don't mind, I'll move forward just to keep the meeting going along, and I'll go through the objectors if there are any objectors here. Can I just double check? Right, I believe there are. So I'll just make this observation for objectors, that this meeting is being live streamed and a recording will be available on the Council's YouTube channel. So you may choose to switch off your camera and address the meeting with audio only. When introducing yourself, please only give your first name, the block or street you live in, not the exact address. Now, the objector noted here is a Mr. McKee. Is Mr. McKee present?
I am, yes, here.
Excellent, excellent. Can I first of all, Mr. McKee, ask you just to give your full name and not the exact address, but the road that you live on, please?
Yes, so I'm Simon McKee, representing Veolia from the integrated facility adjacent to this proposed development.
Very good, and I'm sure you'll be aware that I will give you 3 minutes, and I will tell you 30 seconds before that 3 minutes up that you have 30 seconds remaining. Are you ready to proceed?
I am, yes. I'll put my video on. It has been cutting out, so if it goes a bit...
Audio only is fine. Audio only is fine, don't you worry.
Okay. Okay.
You may begin your presentation now. No, you're on silence. You are on mute. You are on mute. Hello, Mr. McKee.
Yeah, hello a second. I'm just trying to load up my screen. Sorry, Mr. Chair.
So when you're ready, please.
Okay, yeah, ready now. Sorry for that.
Hold on. I'm going to start the clock now. You have 3 minutes.
Okay, thank you. Members should be aware that we have raised ongoing concerns about the development of housing close to our existing Southwark integrated waste management facility. In this respect, we have been in dialogue with both Southwark and relevant developers for some time. Unfortunately, we were not notified and therefore afforded the opportunity to speak at committee when another adjacent development at Devonshire Grove was debated and approved by this committee recently. This is a point of significant concern to Veolia. We have provided a supplementary letter to the planning authority setting out our concerns in full. In summary, the letter identifies that ODA work undertaken by the applicant does not go far enough and is flawed in principle. Very simply put, this is by assuming wind always blows in one direction. The NPPF emphasises the necessity for adequate waste management capacity. It also states that existing businesses and facilities should not have unreasonable restrictions placed on their future operation as a result of development permitted after they were established. Where the operation of an existing business or community facility could have a significant adverse effect on a new development in its vicinity, the applicant for the new development is responsible for mitigating any potential conflict. This is known as the agent of change principle, the government policy. The area are now looking for an obligation to mitigate potential impacts both now and in the future on the developer via the Section 106. This will create a practical legal failsafe to provide reassurance to Veolia in the case of residential encroachment. The officer's recommendation is that the Section 106 is completed by February 2021, but there is adequate time to agree and include this proposed clause. We note that Southern Planning will impose 2 relevant conditions. While these will require the developer to submit details, once these are agreed, there is no further obligation required. Therefore, it is not protecting the future position. If Veolia were to make operational changes within the site in future, there may be an issue with agent of change, but no developer obligation in respect of ongoing liability. We would still be happy to discuss and agree with both the applicant and Southwark Council appropriate wording for a clause within the Section 106 agreement. If the applicant and planning authority believe that their assessment is correct and the applicant is content their assessment is valid, clearly they could have no objection to including appropriate requirements in the Section 106 agreement to make the building freeholder responsible for taking any future action necessary to mitigate odour complaints, rather than that burden falling on either the individual future tenants or Veolia. If the applicant is not willing to agree to such a requirement, then it's clear indication they don't have faith in their own assessments. Under those circumstances, it would be clear that the development has not followed the agent of change principle. Acceptable living conditions for the residents cannot be guaranteed, and the application should therefore be refused. We would therefore ask that this specific obligation is included as a requirement of any grant of planning. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. This is an interesting one. Can I just, before I ask committee members to come in here, have you previously noted to planning officers your concerns, the technical reasons why the concerns are valid from your point of view? And have you had a prior to today received a response from officers, or indeed the applicants?
Yeah, so we've, is this for me, sorry, Chair?
Yes.
Yeah, so we have engaged with Joseph Holmes, the applicant, and we have engaged with officers previously about this, and there is no cloak and dagger with this. It's been an open process. It's just that we believe that although the applicant has provided extra information and they have put in some mitigation, just from our point of view, it doesn't go far enough. It's obviously a strategic London waste facility, and we are simply just trying to protect that for the future, to make sure that if there are requirements within London in terms of operational changes, for example, the agent of change principle is there, and it can basically, it will apply, and we can sort of go ahead with changes if we need to, without that sort of fear of being restricted or not being able to do it. And that's what agent of change is for. It's an industrial area at the moment, and the change is obviously to residential with high residential blocks. So from that point of view, we're simply trying to protect. It's not just for Veolia, it's the position of treating waste in London, as it were, if you're looking at the bigger picture.
My further question before bringing the committee is that I'm aware that of the nature, well, I was aware that there were some concerns, but I was unaware of the technical nature of those concerns. Can you please explain the contact you had with the applicants and the concerns you've outlined today? What response you had to those concerns? I note the conditions you're suggesting. I've noted them, but have you put them to the applicant, and what has been the response?
Yeah, so we had, it's not just here, it was also with the previous application at Devonshire Grove. We've had discussion with them, with both applicants. We had a meeting with the applicant here. They listened, so they listened to our concerns. They've gone away, they have done some extra work, they've proposed some mitigation. That isn't denied, we're not saying they haven't gone and tried to address these problems or issues that we may have. What we're saying is that we just don't think they go far enough, that's all, in terms of protecting a future, the future, rather than now. So, for example, the conditions that are being proposed are fine, and they go part way to addressing our concerns, but the issue is once those are signed off and discharged, those conditions, that is it. There's probably developed there.
Forgive me, my real question is the proposals or suggestions you've made today, have these proposals been put to the applicant, and has the applicant responded to?
Not yet.
It's most unfortunate, I'll say so. All righty, I'll now move to the committee members, and we'll take officers later on. Committee members do have questions. I can't tell at the moment if you have questions. Councillor Newens. Councillor Newens?
Thank you. In actual fact, that was, yes, lovely. So I was just going to ask Simon if you said in response to the chair's question, had the objections been put to the applicant and have there been a response? And the response was not yet. Do you mean that they've not yet been put to the applicant, or that you've not yet had a response?
No, we've had a discussion with them about our concerns and about including a provision within the section 106. So they have been in, that discussion has taken place, and the nature of what we'd like to see in the 106. So that's no surprise, because that's what we've been talking about. And we had a response from the applicant to our concerns, and our response in the letter that we provided is a response to that response from the applicant, which was that They weren't prepared to have a section 106. They believed that the mitigation that they had done was adequate and would, there was no need to do anything else. That's what's prompted the letter to say, we would like a provision in the 106 to, protect this future position. So we have had that discussion. This isn't something brand new. This is an ongoing discussion. And the reason that we've presented this extra information in the form of the letter, which is in the addendum to the report, is to push this issue to the fore, because what we're asking for is that this 106 as opposed to just conditions, just to have something in there to provide the fail-safe. As I said, we get to that today.
Thank
No,
you.
That's understood. That's understood. Don't you worry. Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Newlands. Are there further questions at this point for the applicants? Okay. In that case, if there are no further questions, I won't ask further questions at this point of yourself, but we may come back to you, if I may, Ms. McKee, later on. I want to thank you very much for your contribution and response to the committee's questions. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
I'll now move on to the applicant or applicant agents. I believe that there's a Mr. Carson in the room.
Yes, Chair, I'm here.
Excellent, excellent, excellent. Now, I'm sure you know the routine. I note that you have quite a team who will be available to respond to questions later on. I'm not proposing to introduce them right now, but can I ask you, please, just to introduce yourself and confirm to whom you work for?
Absolutely. Well, good evening, Chair and members of the committee. My name is Craig Carson. I'm Development Director at Joseph Holmes.
Excellent. Now, Mr. Carson, I'll give you 3 minutes to make your presentation. I'll give you, at 30 seconds remaining, I'll indicate there are 30 seconds, and then you'll be asked to respond to committee's questions. Are you ready to start now?
Yes, I am. Thank you.
You may start now.
Thank you. Well, thank you very much for allowing me to speak this evening in respect of our application for the redevelopment of the Daisy Business Park. This application supports the major regeneration proposals for the Old Kent Road, delivering new jobs, new homes and creating new desirable public spaces. Joseph Holmes is an award-winning B Corp certified developer based in Waterloo. We focus on creating beautiful, sustainable developments. Our ethos is building better homes and workspaces for a better world. This is evidenced by this development that will achieve one of the highest, if not the highest, carbon reduction percentages of all recent applications on the Old Kent Road. We understand and support the desire to make the Old Kent Road a successful community, building on its existing character and delivering tangible benefits for the local community. The development will significantly increase the employment floor space, almost doubling the number of jobs. The floor space will comprise of light industrial and flexible SME workspaces, with 10% being designated as affordable. We will also continue to work with the existing occupiers on the relocation and present real opportunities for them to return. We will deliver 219 new homes, with 35% being affordable, with a policy-compliant tenure split. We have also focused on delivery of family homes as part of the social rented offering. The development has also been designed to be fully inclusive, with all residents enjoying a single entrance and core, as well as sharing all amenity space. We recognise the importance that open space and play space has in bringing together communities and creating developments that people want to live in. Our development will provide 45% of the site area as public realm, including the new garden square accessible to all. By working with the adjoining developers of Devonshire Grove, we have been able to design the square to maximise the area and further improve the permeability and connections for future residents. We have focused on the provision of play spaces for a wide range of age groups, delivering on policy compliant provision. We are also providing additional community room for residents at the ground floor, which will be available to the neighbouring Labour Estate residents also. The development will achieve a carbon reduction of 69%, which is double the level reduction typically secured by policy. In addition, all residents will see significant reductions in the cost of their energy bills as a result. Our plans represent our long-term investment into Southwark and the Old Kent Road, providing new homes for a significant uplift in employment floor space in line with your aspirations for the area. We are aiming to be on site within 12 months of receipt of planning permission. Thank you again for your time this evening, and should you have any questions, my team and I would be happy to address these. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Right on time. Questions from, I see Councillor Rose. Are there, before Councillor Rose, are there other questions from colleagues? Could you indicate? I know there are a number of methods you could indicate to me, but no, in that case, then Councillor Rose. Councillor O'Brien. Okay, Councillor Rose, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. It's just to ask the applicant, why are you unable to resolve the issue in relation to Section 106 with Veolia, subject to the information that we received late today and also the ongoing discussions that you've had with them up to date?
Can I bring my colleagues in on Sean Tickle from Rolf Judd Planning on this, but also our odour specialist from Ramble Environment, Leslie? As I think it would be helpful to clarify the point made in respect of our assessment and what assessment was actually carried out in support of the application.
Yes, that's fine. Can I, forgive me, Craig, if I can ask the colleagues to introduce themselves initially, first of all, and who have I got here, first of all?
Yeah, my name is Sean Tickle, Chair. I'm from Rolf Judd. I'm one of the directors from Rolf Judd Planning. Excellent. And your other colleagues, I can see a little. Hello. Please could you introduce yourself. You are on sign. You're on mute. Oh, I guess again. Yep, try again. You're somewhat faint. If you could turn up your volume. Yes, it is not very good, but I suspect your mic is some distance from you. It's marginally better. Yes, go ahead. Please introduce yourself.
Good morning. I'm from Ramble. I carried out the odour assessment.
Excellent, excellent. So who will respond directly to Councillor Rose's question?
I will start, Chair. I mean, obviously, we've done, we've had a number of discussions with Veolia, and following identification late last year that they had some concerns, we actually undertook an odour assessment, which Ramble undertook on our behalf. That odour assessment was then obviously sent through to Veolia, and we've had some discussions with Veolia since. Clearly, the letter that you've seen, we only received ourselves yesterday. So the requirement for the 106 has been something that in some ways has dropped out quite a late stage. So we have been very committed to working closely with all of our neighbours, and we've had a good public consultation, and a number of Veolia actually attended our public consultation. So they've been aware of our scheme for a number of months, if not years. So if I could just pass to Leslie in terms of responding to the comments that Simon McKee made regarding the quality of the odour assessment that was undertaken, because I think we have some concerns about his interpretation of what was undertaken.
Understood. Yes. Please go ahead.
Yes. When carrying out our assessment, we consulted with Veolia and we agreed the data that we should use, which was mirrored on what they had done in their environmental statement. And we just updated it using more recent meteorological data. And I would say that we considered meteorological wind from all directions. We used 3 years worth of that data, which is industry practice. So in no respect did we discount winds that were blowing towards our direction, of the direction of the Joseph Holmes development.
And what about the point that they've made in regards to future capacity or operations on their sites, which their plans and if you like, the relationship and their contract to be waste management facility allows them to do, and the broader point around any future changes to operations and their concerns that an agent of change principle around who would be responsible for dealing with or covering the cost of mitigating alternative odour patterns based on future operations, if you like. I think that was a moot point in that presentation from Veolia.
Any comments, colleagues?
Okay, so we use the odour emissions that are included in their environmental statement, and that is what the plant is currently permitted to operate, and it has to operate under those conditions. And it would have to apply for a variation if it wanted to increase its operation. It tested those odour emissions to get planning, and it hasn't, and that was to get planning at other residential properties that are already in existence all around it.
I think what we're saying, Chair, is that the assessment undertook included an assessment, or when the IWMF was created, already took account of residential properties in the area, and we don't believe that any subsequent increase of activities would have a significant effect upon the results of our odour assessment. Can I just mention that we have actually responded positively to the scheme by introducing the winter gardens at the lower floors of the scheme, just to ensure that there is no impact, not necessarily from odour, but from other environmental effects of vehicles nearby. So we have already introduced that, and we've happily accepted the council's suggested conditions, which we think are in line with government guidance. Obviously, the government is very clear that where planning conditions and planning obligations sit side by side, that it is always good practice to use planning conditions. And I disagree with Mr. McKee that actually I think that these conditions are strictly enforceable, and any breach of that would be a breach of condition, which itself would be able to be enforced by the council. So the use of conditions here, conditions that your officers have suggested and which we're happy to do, I think would be wholly appropriate.
Noted. That's noted. I'm not going to comment on that immediately. It is unfortunate that the negotiations haven't reached a conclusion prior to planning, and that there isn't a professional consensus arrived. But we'll take advice from officers in a moment. I see Councillor O'Brien. Are there other committee members who wish to ask a question of the applicant? Fair enough, Councillor O'Brien.
Thank you, Chair. This development is tenure blind, and I accept that, but it's true that the social, rent and intermediate are clustered towards the bottom of the building, of the 35-storey building. I just wanted to make sure that things like the common areas on each floor, things like floor coverings and decorations, will be uniform throughout the whole building. And also, given that over time the building may change hands and ownership, that any refurbishment that's done to the common areas will be done throughout and equally to all floors within the building. And would you have a problem with us conditioning that?
In terms of the location of the accommodation, as I mentioned in my opening speech, and also as Wing helpfully set out as well, that we do have a single entrance into the building, so there will be uniformity. That will progress through the core of the building, so where it rises from the ground floor up through the building, all the lift carriages that carry to all floors. In terms of the actual decoration of the individual corridors on the areas that lead to the apartments of the individual tenures, which will be operated by the registered provider, we would decorate that in accordance with their requirements and what their needs are, and we would do it into their specification agreed at that time.
Okay. Thank you. Can I take Councillor Hargreaves, please?
Yes, thank you, Chair. My question is about the community room, and I wanted to know if it would have an attractive aspect onto the green space.
Absolutely, it's got a fantastic outlook onto the new garden square. which is obviously have great views across that space, but also as well it'll be quite visible as well. So from Sylvan Grove itself, but also as you travel through the new network of areas that links the Daisy Business Park with the Devonshire Grove development once complete.
Just worth saying, Councillor, that one of the key things we've been talking to the TRA, the Ledbury TRA, who are actually occupying the Hyde housing scheme at the moment, and we'd be very keen for them to make use of that as a community space, as they don't have any shared community space in that development at the moment.
Right here, and if I may just return to the subject of Viola and your responses to the questions. I'm not yet at the point in which I'm able to let this matter go. And I just want to just clarify and take a note of the responses received so far. And those responses, I'm assuming, take into account what are the likely change conditions as the Viola are likely to have future expansion plans, for example. What I'm not fully appreciating, and these are, I suppose, technical areas, and I will seek guidance from officers in terms of their planning weighting. I want to understand if there were proposals for expansion, the current assessments made by the professionals here, is it future-proof? Are they future-proof? Would they allow Viola to operate as it is? And I note I make the observation that they've cited the agent of change clause, which I'm very alert to now, and I want to make sure that we've covered these points prior to us moving away from yourselves. So, are the assessments you've made, professionals, are they future-proof? Who would respond to this question?
I was just looking to Leslie if she wanted to respond on that, and I can follow up then.
Thank you.
We have assessed the current situation, which is the current permitted throughput.
Is it future-proof? For the potential for expansion is pretty obvious in this particular instance. I'm well aware of this. What have you projected the likely increased demand that would occur? Because you've had the dialogue with Viola. Does the assessment take that into account? That's what I'm really asking.
When we had the discussions with Viola, we agreed what we should do, what we should use in our modelling, there was no discussion of future expansion plans.
The answer is no.
Yeah, so no, we didn't take it in.
Okay, that's fine. Sorry, I don't want to labour the point. That's fine. What I want to do at this point, thank you. Sorry, thank you very much for the response. And it's just that I was unaware of the negotiations, and as far as I could see, the negotiations between yourself and Viola had been reasonably resolved, and there might be minor issues around the periphery, which is not uncommon. But this appears to be quite a serious matter of disconnect at the moment, so before moving forward, are there other questions from committee members before I go into anything else? Right, okay. So what I'm going to do first of all is say to the applicant and their agents, thank you very much for your presentation. But I'm not going to complete your presentation. I'm going to put it on pause. I just want to take advice from officers before I go any further, and ask Wing or whoever, I'd just like you to provide some, first of all, I need a comment on the agent of change clause and what weighting this committee should apply. Secondly, the most recent communication from Viola and the concerns they've expressed, are those concerns from a planning perspective of material concern, or how should those concerns be addressed, either here or elsewhere? Who would respond first of all? Who's going to respond?
Shall I go in on that, Chair?
Okay,
Yeah, in terms of the agent of change elements, in granting consent for the current waste transfer operation, obviously we had to be very, very careful. The waste transfer operation didn't create harm to local residential communities, of which there is a considerable residential community around the waste transfer station already. So that consent was conditioned, and the odour assessments that were undertaken and the requirements that we had was that where there were adverse effects, they should only be minor at the very most. Now, if the waste transfer station was to expand or change its operations, we would reasonably expect that to continue to be the case, because obviously we wouldn't want to approve something that had a more adverse effect on odour or any other environmental harms than as existing.
Colin, sorry for interrupting. I think the committee and I are attempting to understand how you make that determination. If the operator suggests that no, this doesn't allow for the usual development of the operation, and it will impinge upon residents. Yeah. So how do you make that determination, please?
Yeah. And I think the agent of change is the test. So we wouldn't want to approve something around this operation that would prejudice it, because obviously we rely on it as a local authority. It's our waste transfer station.
Have you consulted?
So in terms of agents of change, what we're looking at is it wouldn't get any worse. Agent of change doesn't mean to say you can make something worse and we as authority should still support it. So there is a responsibility here for Veolia as well as the applicant. And we think through the condition that we proposed, there is an onus on the applicants to ensure that their odour assessment is checked after the building is completed. We have the same requirement for Veolia. So in terms of fairness, we are proposing a condition which is the same as the condition we imposed on Veolia. And if Veolia were expanding or changing their application, their activity, we would put the same condition on. We would ask them to do an odour assessment.
I've understood. Forgive me, Colin.
So that's where we would come from. Yeah.
At this point of time, so I just want to make sure I keep focus on the kernel of the issue.
And I think John had something to add as well.
I'm pleased you've. There you are, John. Please, I welcome your contribution here.
Yeah, I'm looking at the proposal in the addendum that's been suggested. The suggestion for Veolia that there's something in Section 106 agreement to make the building freeholder responsible for taking any future action necessary to mitigate odour complaints. Now, the idea of having a clause in the Section 106 agreement is so that the council could, if necessary, take injunction proceedings against the owner of the site. And I'm really struggling to see that clause. I mean, obviously this letter's only come in the last sort of 24, 48 hours. I'm really struggling to see that clause is specific enough for the council to be able to take an injunction proceeding. I think we'd have to have a very, very specific action in there to have the certainty to bring an injunction proceeding against anyone. And from that point of view, I think what Colin said about including it by way of condition would sound a more sensible route, because I'm really struggling to see that we could enforce a Section 106 obligation to take into account Veola's concern.
Chair, is it worth asking Veola whether they've got plants elsewhere? Is what they've proposed something that has precedence that they've used elsewhere in the context of other development adjacent to one of their sites?
That's a good question. Absolutely a good question.
What they say in response to what they've heard so far.
I'm just conscious of process that I put on pause just for the moment the applicant agent's contributions to our debates to allow this section to occur. So I will with the permission, with the committee's understanding, this appears to be an interesting technical issue, which I'd hope we had resolved these matters in advance of these meetings, but that's as it is. But I will bring in Viola again, if I may. Is Mr. McKee still there? And I'd be interested to hear your comment on what the applicant and the agents provided, and the legal advice provided by the committee's legal officer. I'd like to hear your response.
Yeah, that's fine. The 106 approach, just as a point of clarification, the 106 approach was discussed not 2 days ago, but has been discussed well in advance with the applicant and Southwark about having that in. So just on that point of clarity. We've taken legal advice internally about the best way to approach this. What we are trying to do is still, when we say we're objecting, we have concerns. I think that's fair to say. So what we're saying is that we think that the 106, as I said, will allay those concerns. The agent of change is a relatively new, not phenomenon, but clause in the NPPF. It's not just here in Southwark, it's across the country. There is residential encroachment around waste facilities, and the ESA, Environmental Services Association, we've been dealing with them about, this, it's happened on other sites we have. I don't think yet we have a 106 example where we have that in with regard to agent of change, because it is relatively new. This is why we wanted to have a discussion with the applicant and Southwark, because in talking to our legal department about a way that we could not cause a fuss or come in with a full-on, if you like, objection and really sort of go to town on it, a way to try and alleviate our concerns, but also enable, we appreciate that there are pressures for development in London and housing. We appreciate that. And we are, we see the reality of the situation, especially in London, and therefore we're just trying to find a way that protects our position as a strategic facility moving forward. And we are happy, as I've said in the letter, and I had mentioned before, not 2 days ago, as I said, but well in advance, we are happy to have a discussion about how that may work and what form that may take within a section 106. If we have those discussions and we can't come to an agreement, it may well be that we come to, there's some other route or something where else we need to go. But we appreciate that the conditions have been put in. We can see what they're trying to do, or certainly I could see what they're trying to do. And obviously the conditions were a late addition as well, in terms of trying to address these points. And they talk about ventilation as well. So we can see there is some movement, and we're sort of trying to come together. But I think to really almost, if you like, fully allay our concerns, we would like to investigate that 106 route. But as I said, we haven't done it before. It's relatively new, and it's something that we would like to talk about and investigate. It's just a shame, as I said, it was suggested the applicant wasn't particularly keen. I know that the conditions have come forward, but it's still something we are keen to do to protect the position and the function moving forward of that strategically important facility in Southwark, which is not just Southwark, but that whole area of London that serves.
Understood. That's totally understood. Now, I'm just very conscious of a agreement I've made with others that every hour or so we will have at least a comfort break. I'm conscious that it is 10 o'clock. We will have a comfort break before taking further questions.
Chair, could I, before we take the comfort break, can I just ask, we spent an awful lot of time toing and froing on this particular issue, which quite frankly, I'm disappointed wasn't sorted out in advance. I'm not blaming any particular party on this, but if what I think is happening is that there is, there is some thought that maybe this meeting will have to be adjourned so that we can continue, so that we can get this sorted out and reconvene, not a deferral, because obviously we've already started the discussion, but an adjournment to another meeting. Can we just do it now instead of just talking endlessly? Otherwise, either it's an issue or it's not an issue.
We're on the same page. We're on the same page.
Thank you.
I think I'm minded to do this. I'll take advice first of all. Simon, John may wish to make a comment before I had that discussion with committee members. John, I see you up there.
Yeah, Chair. I mean, there's no reason why we can't have a discussion about it. I mean, this might have been raised more than 2 days ago, but as far as looking at it from a legal perspective, we're only seeing it very, very recently. As I said before, I'm struggling to see that this clause will come within the Section 106 tests. And I think it would be very difficult for the council to enforce it. But there's no reason why we couldn't have this discussion. I don't see that stops the committee from making a decision tonight, because you'll make the decision subject to a satisfactory Section 106 agreement. The agreement will be negotiated. We're quite happy to talk to Veolia with the developer about it, and they can convince us. If they can't convince us, then the Section 106 agreement will not contain that clause. But my advice for the moment is that I don't see how that can be enforceable. And my feeling is that the committee could go ahead and make a decision on the basis of a satisfactory 106 agreement being negotiated.
All right. Again, I've just got to just remind people that thank you, John, for that. And I don't know if Simon wants to make any comment before I proceed.
Chair, I would echo what John says, although I think I understand that members are concerned that they've been presented with a problem and they would like to be reassured that we can see the solution. John is suggesting that a solution may be looked for, but may not necessarily be found in that case. I think the situation, I mean, I have a view to echo also what Colin has been saying, that we have taken the mitigation of the current situation as far as we can, and we're not recommending to you that we have a clause that covers any possible future situation. Well, it's not necessarily any possible future situation, but you know, there is sufficient mitigation is what our advice is to you. If you're not actually fully reassured by that and you need to have some further consideration, then that may be the only way forward. Okay. I don't know whether Colin can help with any further comment on that.
Okay. Forgive me before Colin comes in, and I'm going to be really clear in that case. And yes, I believe we need to have further discussions. I'm very conscious that Veolia and the services operating is a strategic operation, and one that's not likely to stand still. Building homes adjacent to it may well not be the best strategic position that the council should find itself in. And on that basis, forgive me, Colin, and I know you could like to contribute, but I think we might, I'm just conscious that this discussion, I've had little or no preparation for this. It does appear to be pointing towards a number of strategic issues which we haven't discussed, wasn't discussed, and therefore I'm going to make a recommendation to the committee that we adjourn this meeting to allow for further debate and discussion between Veolia, the applicants, and of course the council, with the view that a future meeting, either an agreement has been drawn up, or a clear planning reason for us to proceed with the recommendation as set out in the council report should be followed through. Okay? So my proposal is that we will adjourn this meeting to allow the parties to have further discussions. Is there a seconder?
Chair, can I just clarify that kind of distinction between a deferral and an adjournment? So an adjournment means that we don't to go through all the officer presentation, and we basically, you know, whenever it happens, we are picking up from where we left off rather than starting the whole thing all over again. Now, can I clarify that?
Thank you. No, thank you, Councillor. That's absolutely right. The term I should be using is adjournment, because we simply pause dialogue with the applicant at this point, just so that we can have this further discussion. So I'm proposing that we adjourn. So to give the parties the opportunity to have further discussion as far as possible to resolve the outstanding issues, and for officers if at a future meeting to either affirm that the current recommendation stands or to suggest revisions as is finally negotiated. So that is my adjournment proposal. Is there a seconder?
I'll second that, Martin.
Very good. Can I now move to the vote? And I'll just do this formally. And I'll just get off the right names. Can I start with Councillor Whittam? Are you for, against, or abstain the motion for adjournment? Can't hear you.
For, Chair.
Thank you very much. Councillor Morell, are you for, against, or abstain the motion?
For, Chair.
Very good. Councillor Newens, for, against, or abstains?
For, Chair.
Councillor Hargrove, for, against, or abstain?
Abstain, Chair.
Repeat, sorry?
Abstain.
Very good. Councillor Morris, for, against, or abstain the motion?
For.
Councillor Rose, for, against, or abstain the motion?
For, Chair.
Very good. Councillor O'Brien, for, against, or abstain the motion?
For.
And I'm Councillor Martin Seaton. I am for the motion. Therefore, the motion is carried. This item is adjourned to allow both parties to have further discussions. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you very much indeed.